So I get a lot of questions about the cost of living in New York. So I decided to make a cost of living video series to give you guys an idea of what I spend living here. I made a previous video all about grocery shopping and food, so if you're interested, check that out. So today's video is going to be all about rent and my experience with rent. So I'll be sharing how I found a room in a shared apartment when I first moved here from the Philippines. And I'll also be sharing how I found my current apartment, which I have under a 1-year lease. Rent is like the number one thing that viewers and friends want to know about, especially people who are considering moving to New York. So I thought I'd share my perspective having been here for a little more than a year. I moved to the United States last year and I landed in New York. So I've lived in a few different apartments until I finally signed a 1-year lease. So I came to New York in July 28 of last year. So 4 days before that, I did not actually have a room yet because everything was so rushed with the visa processing, booking an airline ticket, and I didn't want to finalize renting a room before I even had a visa. So as soon as I got the visa, I booked my flight ticket and then finalized the room to rent. So I actually only finalized having a room 4 days before my flight to New York. So renting a full apartment is very expensive, even if it's just a studio apartment. The range is around... And it wouldn't be practical to come all the way from the Philippines to here and then rent a whole studio apartment and pay that amount in my first month. So it had to be a private room in a shared apartment. So I had to look for a room. So in renting, there are two different types of rent. One is a lease and one is a sublet. So in the lease, you're signing a contract, whereas in the sublet, you are renting from the person who signed the contract. So in sublets, you pay cash basis per month and you can sort of leave anytime, and the person signing the lease can also ask you to leave anytime. I actually started looking at Facebook groups months ahead of my move. So I already had options by the time I had to confirm my room. The first group I looked at was Manhattan Sublets. Sublet is the key word because we are not committing to a lease yet. So if you do a quick search on Facebook, you will find a lot of groups are available and a lot of people have been posting sublets in New York City. If you look around all these groups, it'll give you a good idea of the price ranges of apartments or rooms. So it's always a good idea to look around and do research in advance. So ideally, the sublet is not meant to be like your long-term room. It's meant to be like your transition room because you're still looking around and you might find another place that's more suited to you. The second group that I looked at on Facebook was Filipinos of New York. If you're entering the country with no family or friends to stay with, living with someone from a similar culture or someone who speaks the same language is a good starting point. And most of the times they offer their room at a cheaper price because they want to help their fellow countrymen. So in this group, I made a post. And then I got some offers in my inbox. So for Filipinos looking to move to NYC, I recommend these groups. What exactly do I mean by affordable rent in NYC when everything is so expensive? So what a lot of people do, myself included, is split a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartment. You have your own private room and you just share the kitchen, bathroom, and living room with your roommates. So don't worry, when they say roommates, you're not sharing a bedroom. You're sharing the kitchen, bathroom, and living room. You have your own private room. So that way of splitting like a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom with other people is actually cheaper than having a studio apartment or one bedroom all to yourself. And the costs will depend on the area of the city you are looking at. I work in Manhattan, but I opted to live in Queens first because that's where the Filipinos are, that's where my people are, and it's also a little cheaper than Manhattan. When I lived in Elmhurst, Queens, it took me 30 minutes via F train to travel from my home to the office in Chelsea. But I actually have office mates who live in Harlem and Washington Heights, which is Upper Manhattan, and it took them longer to arrive to the office versus me, who lived in Elmhurst, because the train that I took was the express and it ran much faster. So one thing to consider when renting a room is actually the proximity to an express train station. So when you're looking for a place to live, the factors you have to think about is number one, cost, number two, proximity or ease of transportation to your office, and third is like the culture of the location, if that is something you are interested in. So if you're working in Manhattan, places you can check out for a room to live in are Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and Jersey City. Manhattan would definitely be the most expensive. If you're looking for rooms below $1,000, you will probably find more in Queens versus Manhattan. You have to start looking around months in advance. And after 6 months of living in Queens, I finally decided to sign a 1-year lease and I moved into my current apartment. Which is in West New York. And West New York is technically in the state of New Jersey. For me, I chose to live in the Jersey side because for me, it's cleaner, it's quieter, it's more spacious, and it takes me about the same amount of time to get to the office. And so how did I find this apartment? Together with my current roommate, we went on listing websites such as apartments.com, and then we looked around and picked our top 3 places. And then these types of apartments usually come with a broker's fee, but that is something we decided to cover. And then after visiting all 3 apartments, we picked this one and then signed the lease in March. Okay, that's it for today's video. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down below. Thank you very much. Bye.